All right. Happy Monday night. Hope you guys are doing well. We are live on YouTube and X and Rumble and over here on Instagram tonight. I don't know how many people hop in here on Instagram, but we're going to give it a go. So appreciate y'all hopping on, running it up in the chat. As we do on Monday nights, we're going to run it down. Anything that you want to know about digital assets, macroeconomics, mitigating taxes, estate planning, wealth preservation, wealth management, wealth creation, all that stuff we can get into and more. So run it up with you guys. Been doing these a while now, and I'm excited about this. We used to do a lot of this stuff. I used to do a lot of this stuff. It started on X. We'd just do like Saturday mornings, and anyway, a few people like to listen to me for whatever reason. A little over 2.5 years ago, started doing stuff like this and started talking about these things, and people started listening. And so, it's really kind of grown a lot since then. I feel super blessed and grateful for the opportunity and, just a lot of the introductions and everything else that people have made for me. So as you can see tonight, I have an XRP shirt on. That's the first time I've ever worn XRP apparel. I've had my spinner chain on a few times. But anyway, we were at, just this last week, we went out to Vegas. We went to Rare Evo out there, which is not in a really XRP-centric event. It's more just like a blockchain consensus type event out there in Vegas. It's the first time they've done it there. They had an event at Consensus. We got to meet Wes and his guys and his team, which is really cool. They're in tight with Charles Hoskinson and the Cardano Foundation and a lot of that. So that was kind of the main focus of the event. Charles sponsored, and they were looking for projects that were, building things on Cardano, and interesting to see what's being built in that ecosystem. Definitely different than a lot of the other ecosystems. There's some DeFi, a lot of gaming applications, different way of going about it, just because the code for Cardano's, I don't even know what the coding language is for Cardano, to be honest with you. I probably have not done enough research on Cardano. Just being transparent, I've been focused in a lot of other areas for a long time. And so just with those things on the horizon of breaking out and doing pretty well, I'm starting to dip my toe into other things and see what's out there. But I do think, Cardano is a great ecosystem. I think that the smart contract protocol there and what they've developed is useful. I just don't know what ends up being developed on that network. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's some really cool projects, and maybe that's something we can put in the chat tonight. If you know something that's awesome that's being developed on Cardano that I don't know about, I would love to know about it. And we can get them, if they already don't have a grant from Charles. We did get to meet with his wealth management people while we were there. Also got to chat with Caitlin Long, who is also a good friend of Charles Hoskinson, big supporter there in Wyoming of a lot of the efforts that are making that state the most progressive state in the U.S. for blockchain, smart contracts, and the development of Web3. That's why all of our entities that we help our clients form here domestic in the U.S. are formed in Wyoming. Sometimes, I say that, not all. There are occasions where Nevada or South Dakota or a few other places here in the U.S. might be advantageous, but far and above, it's Wyoming over almost anything else. So it was really cool to meet with her. If you have any questions about Caitlin, just a short conversation with her. She has Custodia Bank. Be great to develop a partnership with her for a lot of our clients. A lot of our clients are crypto native, and so it's difficult for them to get a bank account, keep a bank account. I have a feeling that that's going to change very rapidly once we get legislation, and regulation around the space. She's been fighting the fight for that for a long time. Support her in what she's doing in the space. Don't necessarily agree with, Bitcoin is the absolute end all be all, but I don't think she thinks that either. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been there at the event supporting the ecosystem as a whole. So really enjoyed the conversation with her. She is definitely a libertarian and has a lot of the same views that many people that are on the live in the chat here have. And I think that, if we can support her, we'd love to. We'd love to work with her in some capacity, having some follow-up conversations with her team. So we'll see where that goes. But anyway, so those are kind of the things that have happened recently in my world. We'll go ahead and hop into the questions here and run it down with you guys tonight. Hang out about an hour and a half. Hopefully we can get through a bunch of questions and give you guys a bunch of value. So that's the point of these. And we'll go ahead and jump in here. So Atlantic Living, thank you so much for always tuning in and asking great questions. They've asked tonight, did you get an opportunity to read the proposed bill C-400, preventing banks the ability to create a CBDC and protect all users to continue using cash? Are there similar bills proposed in the U.S.? Yeah, I think they actually did introduce a bill here. I don't remember if that sounds like it's in a different jurisdiction based on what you're saying here, because you're asking, are there similar bills proposed in the U.S.? They did propose a bill. I think Senator Loomis put that out for vote to prevent the formation of a CBDC by the Fed. I don't think it was, well, actually, it's the Fed and the Treasury under that bill. So it hasn't passed. I don't know how much traction it has gained. It's hard for me to say if there'll be a CBDC here in the U.S. If I go with my visceral feeling, my gut feeling on that, I don't think so. I think that the culture and the norms and people's just propensity for freedom and again, the libertarian movement will keep people, and the fear mongering that's happened with CBDCs will keep people away from it. And they probably wouldn't vote for it. So I do think that there's a possibility that bill could get passed. Trump is, adamantly against a CBDC. Dems, I don't think, have come out one way or the other. I would think that they would want to support it just because of its ability to augment capability to put out government aid in different applications. Not that government aid is bad. I think people need a hand up every once in a while, but I do think it needs to be in a way that is controlled in some capacity, which it already is really. Like, they've done a really good job of making sure that food stamps aren't tradable for things that they're not supposed to be used for. So obviously there are still people that do take advantage of government programs, but by and large, I think most people that are on them actually do need them. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on that. I do think there is a bill that I don't know the name of it though, that was proposed by Senator Loomis, and I am hopeful. I'm with you on that. That cash continues to be a thing. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. There's too many people that want to transact anonymously. I'm hoping that we get some new type of currency that is asset backed, that's not fiat, that can just be printed in perpetuity. But you do need credit. So I do think that fractional reserve lending is not going to go away in the banks. But I do think that they will be able to better understand systemic risk of such activity and be able to calculate how to mitigate those risks much better than they currently are able to with the system that's in place once things are digitized, especially for the derivatives market. So going off on a tangent there, but yeah, great question, and I appreciate you asking it. Zoomed Out has asked, if I get my assets into an LLC and I want to take a loan against them, is there a minimum amount? At this time, yeah. So our institutional partners, they're looking at least $250,000 or more is what they're looking to lend out for people. That's on the low end. I know that there are people that want loans for less than that. I really haven't found anybody that's willing to lend liquidity at a reasonable rate on capital less than that amount and provide some of the protections that we ask for, right? So instead of just liquidating you when there's volatility in the market, they do give you time for the capital call, basically to re-up to a reasonable amount to be able to over-collateralize the position. And then we do have a period where we get first right of refusal. So if that doesn't bounce back and you don't, pay back, get your capital in the account back to where it needs to be, you do have the right to purchase the assets back before they do liquidate you, which you do not get at any of those things in a DeFi protocol. They just liquidate it if you're on Aave or Compound. I think even USDC, when they were lending against Bitcoin, which they don't do any longer, they had that feature where they would just liquidate you. So, the current minimum is going to be $250,000, and that's going to be probably a 50 or 60% LTV. And so, if that's the case, then you'll just want to, so you're looking at 500,000 or 600,000 in assets before you can borrow against them at a reasonable rate. And most of those loans are 6 to 12 months. So XRP is around 8 to 10%, but it is held in qualified custody. You do still have ownership of it in a tri-party account. It's not quite to smart contracts yet. So these are paper contracts that we're still doing. Eventually, we'll move to a smart contract protocol where the assets are escrowed and then moved to whoever's account is supposed to have them. If certain things happen within certain time frames, there's not really any leeway. So right now, it actually works a little bit better for us. So I've got a question over here on Instagram. Oh, it's got it the other way. All right. Thank you, Kurt. I appreciate that. See, I don't know what I'm doing on Instagram, so I got good people that are trying to help me out. All right, brother. Let's give it a go over here. All right, hold on. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Trying something new. Okay. There we go. How's that, Kurt? See, and that's why I'm trialing it tonight before we put it on the main account. All right, so let's hop in here. Next question. David J says, good evening. When you're setting up an LLC with, should you choose an actual unique name or opt for a random LLC generated number as a name? So I have an odd bias on this. I like abbreviations for things that matter to you. I'm not going to give the specific abbreviation for my LLC just because I don't want people to be able to find it. I enjoy the anonymity with that. But my dad had a specific saying when before he passed away that he said my whole life. And so I just abbreviated that and then made an LLC with it. So I'm leery of choosing anything that's specific to your name or an easily identified, but I really do like having something that's meaningful for you, right? And it's something that you're going to know, but other people aren't. So that's the way I would play that. If you were going to, opt for one of those, or you could just generate a random name. All that works too, but some of those are going to be taken. Like I said, I like having something that's meaningful for you because what you're doing with the LLC is meaningful, right? And if you're creative, gives you a little bit of an outlet there. So that's the way I would go about it. And I do not suggest, like I said, giving physical identifiers for your personal name or last name or other stuff like that. That we have had some instances where people put digital or crypto or things like that in the name of the LLC, and they were not approved for bank accounts. So just another consideration there too. And you probably don't necessarily want people to know that on the other. Like I wouldn't put XRP in the name of your LLC. I wouldn't put whatever digital asset you're holding. I wouldn't even make it. I would make it ambiguous but meaningful to you. Is how I would put that. Greg Q. What is the benefit of having a business account set up with Kraken? Is a personal account linked to the LLC checking good enough for taking profits? I have both, just wondering. It's a good question. A lot of people have this question, so I'm glad you asked it. So the wallet that you're going to be sending the funds from to the exchange is going to be in your LLC's name or your trust name. If you're not in our infrastructure, we take profit with our clients. We can use the brokerage account associated with it, move it to their cash account. Super easy inside of our ecosystem. But if you do have a cold wallet and you're going to take profit on Kraken, which is a great exchange for doing so, by the way, because they do have fantastic rates. And I've mentioned this before. If you don't have a contact there, if you do want an institutional account or a Kraken Pro account, just ping me and we can get you to the right people. So you can go to either digitalfamilyoffice.io and do the contact form, or you can go to Digital Wealth Partners, either one, digitalwealthpartners.net, and just type in the contact form and ask that question, and we'll get you that information. So, but the answer is yes to either, as long as the funds from the account go into a business account, then you're fine. I don't know that they're going to allow you to add your business account to your personal account for taking profits. So that's the only caveat there. If you are the only one on the LLC, you could use your personal exchange account as long as the funds were sent back to a business account for the bank account associated with them. And you could go like around your butt a little bit and do personal to personal back into business. It's messy for the accounting. You would want one-to-one. So ideally, if you already have the LLC account there at Kraken, I would take profits from that account to your LLC bank account. But if you were in a pinch and you hadn't set that up for whatever reason, and you did want to liquidate a portion for profits, personal account on an exchange, as long as you attached your business account to that for where the profits ended up. So let's see here. And I am live over here on Instagram, so if you guys have any questions, happy to run those down too. So let's see here. Zoomed Out says this is an educated audience. Questions are getting better and more specific. Jake, guessing your client list is about to grow as fast as XRP. Cheers, sir. There's a reason I'm wearing the XRP shirt tonight. Zoomed Out. Excited. I watched Blockchain Backer earlier today. I've talked about this before on here, but if you guys, I don't watch a whole lot of TA people, technical analysis, like charting people. I've watched him for a long time. He has been staring at charts too long. and because of that, and he's brilliant too. He stays in his lane. Like, he has really good expertise. He doesn't listen to other people, but like swing his bias. And he also pulls macroeconomics into it, which I like. He's looking for event driven, but he looks at the charts for that. And it's a confluence across the broader stock market, the DXY currencies, and the crypto market. And I think people that just silo them large picture have a hard time making the correlations, or especially the ones that he makes. But anyway, he's like super bullish. He's like, everything's about to go to the moon, but we need the breakout in the Russell 2000. So looking for the Fed to pivot on rates is really what I'm looking for. Maybe that takes all the way until September, but what he's saying, we're on the precipice of that. We're like 7-9 days, somewhere in there from like imminent breakout if the pattern stays the same as it did in 2017. So that's what I'm hoping for. And that's, like I said, repping the XRP shirt, because I think it's going to be the best performer of any asset in this bull run. Just my 2 cents on that. I could be wrong. I have biases. That's the only position I hold. So full disclosure, you do you. It's not financial advice, just my opinions. And I'm happy to entertain any data over here that you guys want to present to say otherwise. Just, like I said, take it with a grain of salt. And I don't say this enough, but at the top of the screen here, we do have like and share. If you could, click the like button, share it with somebody, subscribe to the channel. If this is valuable for you, it does matter. It helps drive the algorithm and gets this out to more people if you think it's worth watching. So let's see here. I do have an Instagram question. All right. So I know who this person is. He always asks good questions, so I'm not going to reveal his identity. But he says, regarding the potential catalyst upcoming, if Japan increases their rates and things begin to unravel, seems like a perfect opportunity to bring on a liquidity asset. I would agree with this person on Instagram. And it could happen, so there's 3 different events that could really unravel the reverse carry trade in Japan. I think oil plays some role in that. There could be conflict that escalates in the Middle East. And if oil became more expensive in the Japanese yen, could definitely start to cripple their economy. They would have to raise rates, would be the implication of that, to strengthen their currency. And then that would continue to exacerbate the unwinding of the reverse carry trade. And then you've also got, the Fed here in the U.S. that could lower rates now that the jobs report's out, and they've kind of unemployment starting to run hotter than their mandate says it's supposed to. It's likely that they will pull a lever, either QE or pivot on rates. And based on the sentiment of the market, everybody thinks they're going to pivot in September anyway. I'm surprised they've been able to hold it this long. I'm impressed thoroughly, to be honest with you. But they really are in a position of like pride in the line here. And I do think that they're going to save markets over treasuries this time, which is not the theme that they always do. They would normally save the currency over the markets, but I think they have an ace up their sleeve with a stablecoin bill this time. And that'll drive demand here domestically for treasuries. So let's see. We've got here's one. I've heard that if you acquire some type of title, absolutely no one can take your property, including the government. That sounds like something to do with common law versus maritime law. I know enough to be dangerous on all that stuff. That's not something I recommend for people. I have seen people get into very bad situations trying to avoid doing things in a regulated way, is all I'll say. So all of our laws are written in maritime law. I would just operate in that capacity. There are other jurisdictions that operate in a common law capacity. And if you did set something up there, that's how you would set it up. The U.S. is not one of those. And if you are a U.S. citizen, you're subject to the tax code and the laws here. Do we become a republic and shift back that way and do all those things? God help us all. That would be fantastic. But I can't play by those rules until they exist. So I don't know about this specific title that you've mentioned here. I would have to do some research on it to give you a specific answer. I'm just reading between the lines here on what it might be, and I could be way off base. But anything that somebody tries to sell you that property, just be leery of. I would really do some research. I would ask attorneys that fight large cases and have won, represented people in court. If you don't have those people in your network, I would try to find them. You will have to pay for their time, right? So, but if you're willing to do due diligence and you really don't want the government to take your property, then you probably have enough money to afford those. So I would just be careful with it. If you do want to set stuff up in a way that the government can't take your property, the Cook Islands is a fantastic jurisdiction for that. We do have multiple clients with trusts there. We have great estate planners that can help you set those things up. We can set up a trigger trust, which is where you have a domestic asset protection trust here in the U.S. It's a lot easier to operate and deal with and do things with, less costly also. And we can set it up where there's contingencies, where certain things happen, and those assets are moved into the Cook Islands very quickly under circumstances where that you've mentioned here. So that would be the way that we would do it, just to mitigate the risk of the government taking your property if that's something you're concerned about. And I know that one's foolproof. It's never been penetrated, and it's not a problem, and it's completely legal. So that's what I would look at. Natal 25 says HSBC Australia has blocked payments to exchanges as of the 24th of July. How can I identify a bank that is crypto friendly? Thank you. Oh man, I hate that for you. I'm sorry. So Australia is the most stringent financial jurisdiction on the planet, even more so than New York. So if you can get approved there, you're awesome. I would look at Caleb and Brown if you're not already dealing with them. Maybe further down in the chat, you can let me know which exchanges. They operate as a brokerage, so you should be able to wire to them. They don't sound like a cryptocurrency exchange, and they're a broker, and they are registered there in Australia, so you might look at working with them. I'm hoping that your bank would be able to send a wire to them. I wouldn't tell them it's for crypto. I would just say, hey, I'm making an investment. This is my brokerage. I'd like to wire the money there. Leave it ambiguous. Don't tell them what you're purchasing. Just say you're making an investment. They're a broker. They could look them up, see that they're a licensed broker there in Australia. I don't have enough knowledge about banks in Australia to give you a good answer, unfortunately. We do have some contacts there. John Basilos, I can make an introduction for you. He may know what's going on with that and be able to provide you some context and some other options. So again, if you want to go to the website and ask me for his contact, I'm happy to share it. You can go to digitalfamilyoffice.io or digitalwealthpartners.net. Cornell, appreciate you hopping in here. He says, thanks for hosting. Thank you for being here. What's your take on the XRP escrow relock every month? Is it possible Ripple is supplying the XRP demand, thus keeping the price below all-time high? Yes. The short answer is yes. That is exactly what they're doing. And they're moving stuff around as needed to make sure that demand, like you said, demand is met, and holding price stability so that they can continue to transact. If you look at the chart, it's steady for a long period of time. People get frustrated with that. What I'll say about that is if you were trialing something and you wanted to make sure it worked and you needed it to be a stable value and you only wanted to provide enough liquidity to be able to trial it, that's what they've been doing for more than a decade. I think it's ready. I think it's ready to go. I think that the partnerships are there. I think that the lawsuit is over. I think that institutional adoption is literally right around the corner. Especially potentially over there in Japan as all this unfolds with the reverse carry trade. I think that there's going to be some type of liquidity crisis, and this, I don't want to say it's orchestrated, but has the capability to solve that, right? Distributed ledger technology, blockchain, ILP, liquidity pools, all the stuff that's been developed in these ecosystems over the last decade has led up to this point. And just interesting to me that it is probably going to come out about the right time. Running in the background, testing it, trialing it, making sure it's ready, and then they'll flip the switch, right? Let's see here. These first five or six questions are awesome. I agree. Like, you guys asked fantastic questions. The context. I will say this: over the time that I've been doing this, people have provided much more context around their questions, and so that gives me a much better ability to answer them directly and give you as much value as possible. So, like, if you just ask, when all-time high, I'm probably going to skip over that. But if you give me, some context in there, some meat on the question that has, like, really thought through or been thought through before it's asked, I love that. And I will say that people do a fantastic job here on this. So as an example, and I'm not beating on this person, but this is kind of a more of an ambiguous question. This is just, do you take profits this cycle? I have no context to answer this from. I don't know your situation. I don't know your future plans. I don't know what you want to be, where you want to do, if you have an LLC, if you're going to be able to mitigate taxes. If you're talking about me specifically, I could answer it, but he didn't ask that. He said, do you take profits? I think it could be absolutely necessary for some people to take profits, and I think it could be a horrible idea for some people to take profits. Should you liquidate 5% of your bag, or should you sell the whole thing? Without context around where you want to be and what you want to do and the current circumstances in your life, it would be irresponsible of me to speak to this question in any meaningful way. And also, I can't give financial advice. That's what our wealth management team does. So again, if you're looking, like, if you have these questions and you don't, so here's the other deal about this. You don't know what you don't know. And so if you don't know even which questions to start asking in a way that allows you to come to a really good answer, then you can work with our team. You know, some shameless plug. We will help walk you through all of those questions, ask those questions for you, and then give you that framework to think about what that is. We do make recommendations, obviously, if you work with the wealth management and the wealth advisors, and you pay them for that advice, right? That's what you're doing. But we prefer to teach people to fish rather than catch the fish for them. So we will definitely walk you through those frameworks, unless you really just don't want us to. Like, we do have people that are like, I just want to hand it to you, don't want to think about it at all, y'all handle it. We can do that too. We're as involved as people want us to be, but we always try to give people as much value as we can, because our goal with everyone's to, again, teach you to fish, not fish for you, so that you can make those decisions with us. We're your partner. Literally what my thing says is your digital wealth partner. Our RIA is Digital Wealth Partners. So anyway, rambling on here, but yeah, just if you can give me more context around your situation, or you don't have to dox yourself, but like more context around this would really give me the capability to speak to it better than just I can't answer it the way it is. Atlantic Living says Scotiabank from EXP won't allow purchases cashing out crypto. Interesting. What are sources can be used to cash out crypto if your bank account prevents you to do so? Can you suggest other ways to take or place profits? Stable coins. Yeah, I would, potential USDC or Paxos might be ways to do it. I wouldn't touch Tether personally. Can't tell you what to do. Again, you make your own choices, but this is Tether FUD, full transparency, this Tether FUD, okay? But I know that there's subpoenas that have been issued to people that are using Tether, and every large financial institution we've spoken to face-to-face personally on multiple occasions has said they've de-risked from Tether. They do not accept transactions in Tether. Something's going to happen there at some point. When? Your guess is as good as mine. I think sooner than later. It's not something that I would personally mess with. So up to you, but that'd be one way you could do it. Again, Custodia. We're going to pursue some type of relationship with Caitlin Long and that bank just because they are super crypto friendly. Mercury is another one that we use here in the U.S. that's crypto friendly. Bank of America, if you don't say crypto specifically, you're normally okay. There being in the EU or in other jurisdictions or Australia, I don't know. I don't have enough people on the ground. We definitely have people on the ground there. I can ask in the Mastermind. That's probably what I will do. Is ask our patrons of the Mastermind where they're taking profits to and where they've been successful with that, and then I can share it back here. Or if you want to join the Mastermind, it's mastermind.beyondbroke.com. We have over 600 members now, which is crazy to me, and a lot of good people in there all across the world, from Australia to the UK, Canada, Japan, Brazil, the broader EU, and obviously here domestic in the US as well. And we're agnostic. Like we take anybody that has an interest in digital assets, that wants to understand what to do and how to make sure that they're set up right. That's what we provide in there, along with private investments in fintech companies. So, anyway, that's what I got for you. I wish I could be more specific and give you like, this is what you need to do. But that's my takeaway is I'll go back to the Mastermind and ask people there, and hopefully they will be able to give me a good answer. Man, you guys are great with the questions. Let's see here. Mario says, thanks for all the information you provide. What should we expect in the near future for XRP regarding price? A gradual movement or a gradual increase? Greetings from Argentina. Very cool. Glad to see somebody else on here from South America. Maybe, I don't know if you're in Central Time, maybe you're Mountain Time or probably Pacific time in Argentina. So a little bit earlier than me. Very cool though. And I am a big believer that it will not be gradual. I could be wrong. I've been wrong plenty of times before, and I will say that if I'm wrong, I will come on here and say I was wrong. I thought that we would see price movement before the case ended. I was wrong. I knew that it wouldn't be related to the case, was really what I meant by that, and obviously it wasn't. Case is over. Price is still what it is. So I think that there will be macroeconomic and global events that are the catalyst for the implementation of distributed ledger technology, and XRP in particular. And when that happens, I think people talk about the flip of the switch. I do think that it'll roll like that. I think that it'll move very quickly. It'll look like a flip of the switch. When XRP moves, I mean, you can look at the previous chart history. It does not move gradually. When it goes, it's off, gone. Especially 2017. So that's my anticipation, is that it will move in a similar pattern to 2017, and maybe even more dramatically than it did then for this cycle. Get on down here. I did see some people throw up the super chat, so I'm going to make sure that I get to their questions, and then we'll roll back through here. Honest Aim, thank you for the super chat, brother. He says, Jake, tonight I just want to say thank you for all that you do. Thank you, brother, for all of us here in the Mastermind. We're eagerly awaiting the deal flow on the other side of liquidity. Blessings to you and yours. Thank you. So that's, Honest Aim is a member, and he does see what we're doing there with the private investments. I don't talk about a lot of the stuff that we're doing in the background on here. I work 16-hour days. Everybody on my team works 16-hour days. I super blessed to be around people that are willing to run hard all the time and put in what's necessary to be able to get things to scale and really build something that I think is going to be special. On the other side of this, we're looking to provide access to globally some of the best investments anywhere that you can get. We've got a funnel that we're creating for that. And so, not just the crypto side of things. I think that, so I've talked about this before, and maybe this is a good time to kind of rehash it again. Wealth creation is like the tree of a trunk, the trunk of a tree. So it's the biggest part of your portfolio, and it's where you get the most upside. And then once it grows, then it kind of spreads itself out and diversifies like the leaves or the branches on a tree. And a lot of the time, your core investment still stays as the biggest part of your portfolio, wherever you made your money. So I think a lot of people that make their money in digital assets, I can say this for sure, family offices that we work with that did make their money in crypto, they keep a lot of it there because they believe in it and they understand it. And that makes a lot of sense because you understand that industry, but you do want to either take profits or borrow against something that is going to continue to go up over time, and use that liquidity to plant seeds in other areas and diversify your portfolio to hedge with non-correlated assets. So if this does poorly for a period of time, that does good. Or it doesn't even have to be inversely correlated. It just has to be not correlated. So we are looking at all industries, all the growth sectors. So I'll say that. So anything with blockchain smart contracts, obviously, space, 3D printing, AI, biotech, nanotechnology, autonomous vehicles, other applications for cybersecurity, data centers, electronic, components. We've seen a lot of people looking at semiconductors, right? That's why NVIDIA has done so well. So all of those things, disruptive technologies like graphene. We just had an investment close in there. I can talk about it now for graphene investment in a company doing that. I had another one the other day that I talked to that's also looking at the technology. So I don't want to say I like to be a jack of all trades, but I need to have a fairly deep understanding in a lot of different verticals. All the things, I have an idea of what I think are going to be the top 10 growth industries over the next decade. And that's where I'm spending time outside of blockchain, learning about things, meeting people, making connections so that we do have opportunities there. And then again, the funnel that I'm building, all those people will probably use that to, my team are building. A lot of people will use that to raise capital for their investment. And so we'll have some visibility of what's going on there. You gotta be careful with that. We're not a broker dealer. We don't make introductions. So we'll have to wait till we can really get that to scale, and then, we'll figure it out. So, anyway, it's coming on the horizon. We've got a 3, 5, 10, 20-year plan for how we want to execute and build this out over time. And we're on the right path. So thank you for, the kind words, honest aim, and glad to have you a part of the Mastermind group. JK says, recently joined the Mastermind. Once we do see price appreciation for XRP, could you go into detail how working with clients to create passive income? Truly grateful for you, and thank you. Absolutely, brother. So depends on what's right for you. We are going to have opportunities, if you do take profit, to invest that money somewhere where you get depreciation on whatever you invest in, to be able to offset the income so that you don't pay taxes on taking profit, and that'll produce cash flow of some kind. We have opportunities in real estate. We have opportunities in M&A transactions. I talked to another gentleman the other day that's selling electrical components to AI and Bitcoin miners that pays a really good cash on cash. And he gives 60% of the depreciation on those assets back to the partners on his fund. So just brilliant model because any income that you make off the fund, you won't have to pay any taxes on. So obviously you'll have to probably pay taxes on the initial investment. But the first year, if you didn't take distributions, if you just sideload those out and took the tax, you could probably offset the investment itself. And then going forward, be able to take profits on an annual basis that were distributed, and that would be long-term capital gains. And then you could use the depreciation that year to be able to offset the capital gain income because it's less than just the income itself. So, and you may have, capital gain income on your profits that you're taking in crypto. So just stuff you want to think through, right? But we will definitely be bringing those opportunities to people that work with digital wealth partners. Definitely be bringing those opportunities to people that are in the Mastermind group. So love to have you in there, and excited to be able to do that. And this is the deal for me. I personally want all this stuff. And so it's kind of like, but the way that I structure things is I want other people to win for me to win. And so I try to build things in that manner. And if I solve problems for myself, then I can solve them for other people too. And so I try to build it in a way that it actually solves their problem, not necessarily before it solves mine, but in a way that it's mutually beneficial for everyone. So, that's what we're working on, and that's our ethos. Let's see here. Vincent Johnson, how you doing? How are you, sir? Where liquidity going to come from that will cause XRP ledger price to appreciate? Does it need to be from retail or institutions? It'll definitely be institutions. It will definitely be institutions to get to. And I've said this before. If it's retail driven, it doesn't get to even previous all-time high. There's not enough liquidity in retail that can push the price of XRP up to where it needs to be, or where people want it to go. On the institutional side, there's more than enough liquidity there, and in a liquidity crisis, either for exchanges because of Tether and Bitcoin, or from like the stock market, which is where I think it'll probably come from. Oh geez, my phone's trying to die. So apparently it doesn't like doing that. It does not like doing Instagram. So I'll have to figure out another way to do that. But yeah, it's going to come from institutions. So that's, until that happens, I don't think we're going to get what a lot of people are hoping for. But I don't think that's too far off, just personally. Let's see here. PD Dent. He has asked, what is the charge to join GWP and its service? I didn't see that on the website. We probably need to list that on there. That's a good point. So our fee schedule is as advantageous for the client as I could possibly make it. Again, I try to align things where if I was the client, it's like a no-brainer for me. And I really just not the right word, loathe traditional wealth management firms because they rake people for fees and then they don't perform and you never make any money. You actually lose money with most money managers or RIAs, which is not good. And then they do a 60-40 split with your portfolio, stocks and bonds. And then when you make profit in one, they reallocate it to the other. You never make any money that way. You need to take asymmetric bets. You need to have access to private investments. You need to have uncorrelated asymmetric bets across markets. So anyway, all that said, fees. The way we structured it is anything below 5 million, we do take 2% on. Anything from 5 million to 10 million, we do 50 basis points, which is 0.5%. These are our AUM fees. So these are annual. They're assessed quarterly. We may have to move them to monthly because that's how we get billed by Anchorage and our other partners. I don't like that, but we may have to do that here in the short term, to be honest with you. Probably have to go to monthly billing, but it's appropriated across. So let's say it was, let's say it was 1.2% that we took. It would just be 10% of 1% each month that you'd be billed. And you can pay that separate or from your account. And people will say, well, why are you billing me on the frequency, or why does it cost that? We have a lot of we really don't have that much overhead. Compliance is really the answer. So we have people that are making sure that the accounts are segregated, insured. We have other partners that do the billing and reporting. We have other people that help us get liquidity against investments. We have other people that do the compliance and help us with all the compliance and everything that we need to have set up. We lose money at 40 bips. Like if I take 40% on the capital that we have under management, we actually lose money. And so if you're over 10 million, that's what we take is 40 basis points. So that's $40,000 a year is all we make for managing it. And that really it doesn't even quite cover our cost to do so. So where do we make our money then? Right. If we're not making our money there, like most asset managers do, because that's where they make their money, is on the fees that they charge you, irrespective of if they make you money or not. We make our money if we make you money, right? I like aligned interest. So we do the first 8% that we generate for you goes back to the client, all of it. There's no clawback, there's no catch up, there's no nothing. It's a preferred rate that's paid to the investor. If we don't make you 8%, then you don't pay us anything, right? You get all of it, the first 8%. And I'll say this because this is a question that I'm asked frequently via email. We don't take any money on the appreciation of the assets that you bring over. So let's say you bring your XRP over, your XLM, your HBAR, your Algo, whatever you have invested. We provide the institutional custody. We have multi-sig on the accounts. We do all that stuff. Unless we put that to work somehow, if the investment's brought to us, we don't get any of that appreciation. So we don't count that in our returns. Okay. We only count what we're able to generate for you in a percentage of the assets being managed. So if we're able to put that to work and we earn 10% on it, you get the first 8. That other 2% is where we would start to make some money. And we're compensated 20% of the returns on any returns above the 8% threshold. So I know that's complicated. I'll give you like an actual math thing when I'm done talking, so it illustrates it a little bit better for you. So 20% of any returns above the 8%. So the first 8%, all that goes back to you. Let's say we made you 20%. So between 8 and 20%, we take 20% of that. So let's say you got $1 million with this. Well, it's got to be more than that. So we can't even earn performance fees until you have at least 1.1 million under management. But just for simplistic reasons, I'm going to break it down using the million. Okay. So you got $1 million with us. We make you 20%. So we make you 200,000. On the first 80,000, that all goes back to you. We don't get any money. On the next 120,000, we would take 20% of that for our efforts and generating those returns for you, irrespective of any. So let's just say your assets stayed the same value the whole time you had them with us. It's probably not going to happen. They're going to go up in value, but we're only going to get 20% of that 12% beyond that, which is 120,000. So 20% of 120,000 would be $24,000. So we make you 200,000. We make 24,000. So that equates to like 10.2%, something like that is all we would get, which is obviously less than the 20%, right? Because you got, and the higher that value goes, the less we get. And then anything over 20%, we take 50%, 50-50. It's going to be a rare deal that we really generate people, because if we're doing our job, we're mitigating risk, and that means we're taking lower risk investments. We're hedging to the downside. We're paying for some of those hedges and the insurance on that. So the only time we're going to be able to generate north of 20% for people is if we just really hit a home run. Like we invest in a company, or we have an M&A deal that exits, or and again, we're going to be diversified. So our goal is to be another like Berkshire Hathaway type deal, where we're compounding money at 20% per year. We're making a good living doing that, generating those returns for people, and people are making a killing because their money's compounding, right? Year over year, plus the appreciation on their digital assets. Liquidity pools and AMMs and all that stuff, quite possible, and we'll be picking those selectively. We'll be understanding the terms and the time rate that those are going to be allocated for. We're going to be looking for asymmetric bets on allocating liquidity to specific assets that are inversely correlated, that are going to have a lot of volatility and appreciation on both. There's a lot of considerations on which AMM you would provide liquidity to and which liquidity pools you'll provide liquidity to. And anything currently, the way that the legislation is, slotted, is that anything over 50 million, you're going to have to partner with a broker dealer. So we have those capabilities, so the people that participate with us will be able to use their assets and earn a yield in the AMMs. And we will help you work that out. And obviously you'll be a part of those conversations if people decide to be. But hopefully that gives you, I know I've rambled on a long time here, but hopefully that gives you a lot better understanding of how we make money at Digital Wealth Partners. If you go to any other RIA, I've looked, nobody else does that good of a deal for people. And that's why I set it up that way. So, Pavel says, Jake, the SEC is taking $125 million from Ripple before October 8th. Does that mean the SEC will not appeal it, and we don't have to wait until October 8th to get the final clarity on the appeal? I don't think that they will appeal. And that's just because I think both of them have spun in a way that they look like they won. Ripple said that there was a 94%, they paid 94% less than what the SEC asked for, and the SEC said they paid 12 times as much as what Ripple had asked for. The appeal for XRP being a security or not, I think is already passed, so I don't think they can appeal that, and I don't think they're going to appeal the final ruling on the case. So I think we're good. But I do think that banks in particular may wait until that appeal period is over before they start partnering with Ripple here domestically and using their technology, just in case. But if we did see macroeconomic events play out sooner, I think you could definitely see price appreciation before October 8th. Mr. Nobody says when see. Let's see here. This is good. Roger says, so if I take profit, it goes into my LLC bank account. Can I then send it to my personal account? Does Mercury have a limit that I can transfer to my personal account? If you're inside their own infrastructure, I think you can move up to any ACH is $1 million a day on same day transfers. They might allow you to do more than that. I don't know why you're taking it immediately to your personal bank account, because that's going to be a distribution and it's going to be taxable. The whole point of taking it in the LLC was to appropriate those funds in a way that you could use them and for the full breadth of the tax code and mitigate your tax implications. You're basically just saddling yourself with the tax implications, irrespective of the LLC, if you're doing it that way. You would set that up in your operating agreement. So I'm not telling you what you can. I mean, I'm kind of telling you what you can and can't do, but in your operating agreement, you would have a cadence on how often you could take distributions as the managing member. And if you said daily, then you could take it daily if you wanted to. That's not the way things are normally written or done. And there would definitely be questions around that. And if you were in litigation, people would really question that and probably use it to pierce the veil of your LLC. Anybody that's filing your taxes would also think that was weird. So I have seen monthly. People take monthly distributions from their business. So you would set a date for that and then take the distribution on that date to your personal bank account. But again, I would use those funds out of the LLC bank account to purchase assets that produced cash flow or got depreciation. And I'll just say this. Some people can't wait. They've waited 7 years. They're ready to get that money. They'll pay the taxes on it and be done with it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Especially if you've been waiting that long. And you just want to pay the 20% taxes on your long-term capital gains, and you're going to set that money aside to do so. Set it in a money market account. Know that it's there, ready to pay your taxes when the time comes. Cool. Use the other 80% at your discretion, right? But I would just say, if you're going to be methodical about this, if you're going to set yourself up for success, it would be ideal if you could purchase assets that cash flowed and passed depreciation against the profits that you took back to you, so you could mitigate those taxes on the income off of that and your investment that you took out or cashed out on. And really, we have the capability to borrow against your XRP already at 8 or 10%. And you can definitely use that borrowed capital in any way that you want to, as long as you're going to repay the loan, right? So if you have to liquidate more of your XRP, 12 months from now at a higher price to pay back the previous loan, and then borrow again against the rest of your XRP to pay back that loan. That's what the rich people really do, is they wait for more appreciation on their assets. They take out another loan to pay off the previous loan. Just saying. I have a feeling that 12 months from now, we're going to see multiple step ups in potential price of a lot of these assets, not just XRP in particular, but most definitely XRP. So just think through those things. Again, not saying taking profit is wrong. Not saying taking it to your personal bank account is wrong, as long as your operating agreement says that that's how you do it. I would just be aware of those things and make sure that that's set up beforehand and that you have good reasons for doing so and know the consequences associated with those actions. Luke, I have over 100,000 XRP. Good for you, brother. And I want to use institutional custody, but I don't. But how do I know that it won't be taken from me if the institution becomes bankrupt? This is a great question. So everyone that we work with is bankruptcy remote. And what that means is they've siloed that portion of their business completely separate of anything else. The accounts that are held there are not their property. They cannot be taken from you. Even in bankruptcy, they have no rights to those assets. Those assets and the management of them will be transferred to another trust bank, completely separate of the entity that's gone bankrupt. And that bankruptcy would happen independent of any capability to take your assets. So that's been the problem, right? Like you had Voyager, you had Celsius, you had FTX. This is the one thing that traditional fiduciaries and those people have gotten right. They've segregated custody from the other financial products. And so that's now what's making its way to crypto. That's our account at Anchorage. That's the way it's set up. They have one entity specific for custody. All those constraints that I just mentioned are laid out there, completely separate of the entity that does the exchange and the brokerage and all of the other stuff to be able to trade those assets and do those things. So segregated, bankruptcy remote, not commingled with other assets. You're insured. It's crime insurance. So if you're hacked over there, it's up to $100 million on your account. You get all the benefits. It's multi-sig. So even if they wanted to take it, they can't because they don't have your signature. Anyway, there's a lot of things that we've made sure that all of that's set up so that there's literally no possibility of what you're discussing here, because I wouldn't hold my assets in something that had that possibility. Because again, everything that I've done is like a personal bias of mine, and it's been for me too. It's not like I don't have a fairly significant allocation to XRP. So anyway, hopefully that gives you a little bit better context around what we provide and how it's structured. Let's scroll on down. I did see some more super chats here that popped up on the screen a little while back, and I want to make sure that those people are taken care of because they are nice enough to throw a little money around, and it is much appreciated. So, Halon's Razor says, "Hey Jake, awesome brother. If I moved an iTrust IRA into Anchorage after 59.5, could I do an in-kind distribution to move the XRP out of the IRA and use regular custody so I could use it in AMMs, etc.?" It's a great question. We will provide the value, a way. We have a way, literally right now, to earn yield on your XRP held in an IRA. So you wouldn't have to wait till 59.5. The AMMs are still up in the air, to be honest with you. I don't know how they're going to look at delegating that. Is it a loan against it? Because you can't loan against your IRA. There's parameters around what you can and can't do with an IRA. But the way that we generate profit with it, you can do. So if you want to work with us, I can talk about that. I don't want to talk about it in an open public forum because I think other people would want to do this for their clients. Not that I trust or Bitcoin IRA or a lot of these people could even do it because they hold it on a ledger in a level 4 facility with no access, and a person walks in there and executes the transactions for you and sees your keys, and they're not insured. No, never mind. I won't talk bad about people. I think that there's a better way to do it, is all I'll say. And I think that we've accomplished that with our partnerships. And so, but to answer your question that you did propose here, yes, you could definitely take in-kind distributions after 59.5, and you would just owe the taxes on those. If it's in a traditional IRA, you would still have to pay those. You wouldn't have any fees, but it would be income tax on those distributions. But if it's in a Roth, then you get that tax-free on the other side of that, and you could still take it in kind and use it in a liquidity pool or an AMM to earn yield. So super cool. Thank you for the good question. See that like super context there. Good stuff. We also have K Moore. He says, "Thanks for continuing to give us insights and keeping us informed about the knowledge of protecting our wealth." Side combo. I was hoping the judge of the SEC case was going to reveal the 1,700 option contracts. I was too, man. I was really hoping that that's the way that she was going to rule that and give the SEC what they asked for. That didn't happen, unfortunately. So because of that, we didn't see. I thought if she ruled that way, we could potentially see a pop in price because not because of the use of the asset, but because people would get excited about their partnership with Amazon, McDonald's, all the large oil companies, other international companies that do remittance, Airbnb, Uber, all that stuff. Those are just my speculation on some of who those 1,700 contracts would be with. Google, Anyway, again, just my 2 cents, but. Yeah, I was too. I was super hopeful that would happen. I still think we're going to get some of those announcements. I don't know when and how that happens, but I think that those are coming. Man, hit me with the super chats. You guys are awesome. Hola! What's going on, Alfredo? I think you mentioned after obtaining your LLC to fill out a 709 form or something like that. Can I do that now or when I file next year? So 709 is only going to be needed when you do your trust. And that's if you complete the gift from the LLC that the assets are in into the trust. So if you don't complete the gift, then you don't have the tax liability past the trust. Tax liability was still set with the LLC, but the creditor protection and the probate protection would sit within the trust. So when I first started doing this, I thought it was like an all or nothing thing. It's actually like segmented out. So if you don't want to give up control of the assets, you don't have to, but you still get the protections of the trust and the benefits of the LLC. And so that's why we recommend almost everybody to set up at least an LLC outside the trust, move your assets in there, and then later on set up the trust, and then you can complete the gift when it makes sense. And when you do that, then you would need to file a 709 with the IRS to complete the gift from one entity to the other. When you're setting up an LLC, you don't need a 709 because it's a capital contribution. The consideration that you are putting up for the equity in the business is those assets. So when you're filling out your operating agreement, the last page will be a capital contributions page, and you will fill out, the wallet address that you're going to use and move into the LLC, the asset, so the nomenclature, XDC, algo, HBAR, whatever it is, the amount of the asset. So if you had, let's say you had 100,000 XRP and it's at 57 cents, it'd be 100,000 XRP for $57,000. You would also list the current value of those assets on the day of transfer. And you would get that page notarized. You take it to a title company or a bank, and they'll notarize it for you. So you do not need a 709 form to move the assets into the LLC, but you will need to fill that out if you do complete the gift from the LLC into the trust. All right, we'll go back up. I think I got the super chats. Appreciate you guys on those. This is a long one. I will try to run it down. So Michael, he's asked this on X. I haven't been getting as many from X, so appreciate you asking the question. He says, "Hey Jake, I've been in crypto and blockchain community since 2020 after really learning about the real side of financial system. I know that the current financial system is near the end phase. I would agree. Other countries no longer want to be bullied by the United States. That's correct. I highly believe in these ISO compliant blockchains. I'll give a statement about what you said there. My question is, why would they choose these blockchains when governments can create their own? Just curious if you have an idea." So two pieces here. Those blockchains are not ISO compliant. There's no such thing as an ISO compliant blockchain. The ISO standard is a messaging standard that banks use to communicate between one another. So that's data that they pass in a specific way between one institution and another. And that gives them the ability to use distributed ledger technology for instant settlement. Because if you had data that was, let's say you wanted the name here, but it's over here, and their account number here, but it's over here, and they didn't list this of what you need, you got to ask them for it. You can't have instant settlement because you got to reconcile all the data before you can settle the payment. So they've standardized how they pass information between one another, and all of them collect the same information and pass it in the exact same way to the other party. So that's what an ISO standard is, and that's what ISO 20022 is. There are companies that created products for payments that have that built into the products that they offer banks using the blockchains. Okay. And I know I'm being pedantic and probably overbearing on this, but I think a lot of people just make that statement and then people don't really know the context around it. So I'm trying to give you more context around it. So to say that those blockchains are quote unquote ISO compliant is a falsehood. There are companies that sell products that have been built using those messaging standards that settle with these assets. And the only two of those that are actually that way are XRP and XLM. XDC does not operate with the ISO 20022. It's a separate standard that Andre Casterman developed, and it's for, Well, it may now. I think R3 is working with SBI, and they're probably building products that allow for that standard to use there in Japan and domestic here in the US. But previously, the only ISO standard that was on XDC's network was developed by Andre Casterman, and it was for trade finance to be able to pass information on receivables and bill of lading and all of that stuff. Got to listen to him present that last year in Austin, and it was, most people were like passed out. I'm like glued, tuned in, man. Anyway, so SHX, that's built on top of XLM, and they are a payment processor, similar to Stripe. I guess that makes sense. And then Algorand, yes, I would agree with that one too. There are the Algorand people that run things on that do have the capability to also use the ISO standard. So the ones that you listed here are good. Some people list some other stuff that I don't necessarily agree with. So why would governments use these over blockchains that they create? They're going to use blockchains that they create. They're going to use private permission networks that attach to and settle through public networks, so that the different participants can settle between each other instantly. Because they don't, like Bank of America doesn't trust Chase doesn't trust Wells Fargo doesn't trust Citi, because they can't see their internal ledgers, and they definitely don't want them to, right? But if they're passing the payment over a public network and settling through an agnostic bridge currency that both of them believe is trustless, and it is because of the code, right? They don't have to trust the other party that they're transacting with. They just have to trust the public ledger that it's going to settle, and it's going to be real time. It's going to work how it's supposed to with the code, and there's not going to be downtime or problems. So that's one of the other things is, I mean, we saw CrowdStrike the other day and what all the problems that caused. We've seen a bunch of other infrastructure go down and problems with payments and banks. When they moved to distributed ledger technology, the XRPL has never been down. Solana's been down a bunch. So if you wanted to maintain the current problems with our financial system, just use Solana or Ethereum or Bitcoin or any of these other networks that can't scale. The ones that you mentioned here can scale. Currently, there are some constraints on there, but there are things that they can do to augment that, to batch payments and settle real time. So those are the reasons that governments would use those public blockchains over private permission networks. They will still use private permission networks. Absolutely. You won't be able to see the government's transactions. I know that, there's this libertarian movement that would love to see that happen. It's not going to happen. They're not going to disclose that. They're not going to, it could be auditable, and there may be some disclosures. And if there was legislation from Congress that mandated that, cool. Yeah, I could see that happening. But I just know how the world works. I would love to see it happen. I don't think it's going to. So Corda and R3 is a private permission ecosystem. It's a blockchain that allows you to develop all of those capabilities and run the accounting in a private permissioned ecosystem where only the actors that you want to can see that information and participate. And it can use XRP to settle because it doesn't have an inherent a settlement token that was issued on the network. It's interoperable with the XRPL and XDC's network. And it will settle through whatever has the most liquidity between those siloed institutions and people participating on that network. You don't need a settlement instrument in the private permissioned ecosystems because you trust the other parties that are participating in the private permissioned ecosystem because you vetted them, you trust them. That's why they're interacting there. But if you wanted to settle between your private permission trusted ecosystem and somebody else's that you don't know about or trust, you can't see, it's not transparent, you're going to use a distributed ledger technology and a public blockchain to do that. So anyway, that's how those two interact. I know that there's this like esoteric, like freedom, everybody operates on a public, decentralized, transparent blockchain. It's not how the world works. I hate to break people's bubble on that. And I'm talking to the parties building these things for their own ecosystems. JP Morgan built Onyx, which is a private permission blockchain. It's EVM based. You can't see it. It's not public. And they will have lots of stuff that they build in there for their private wealth clients and their management, and their banking, and they'll interact in that ecosystem with JPM Coin. And anything they want to send out of that, they're going to have to be interoperable with the EVM sidechain and XRP, is my speculation. So anyway, I rambled on a long time there for this one, but I wanted to hit on some points, and he asked a good question there at the end, so I did want to run it down. Scrolling down here, we're almost to the hour and 30 minutes. I'm going to wrap it up here in about 15, but I'm going to run down these other super chats here. Appreciate you guys on these. So David, he says, thank you for all the help. Absolutely, brother. Appreciate you being here and taking the time out of your evening to watch the broadcast, the live. What is your opinion on what the XRP appreciation may look like? Slow crawl to 13-ish, or do we wake up and see 25, 50 plus? Do you think XRP falls 80% post-run like it did in 2018 after $4? Please expand. A lot of really good context here. Thank you for the question. And this is the type of question that would, like, do I take profit? These are the questions you would ask. And there's more to it than that, but like, this is the context around market dynamics. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know. I can give you my best guess based on how I see it playing out. So a lot of the people on the charts have said 10 to 13 for a long time. I don't think they're taking into account the logarithmic scale this actually operates on. And I don't think that they're also taking into account the extended time frame that the chart for XRP is operated over versus the previous one. I think they just like take it, move it, slap it, and then they're like, cool, this is what it's going to be. I anticipate those higher numbers that you mentioned there, probably even more than those. And the reason for that is institutional adoption. I think we're going to have a liquidity crisis. I think there's going to be macroeconomic events that play out that require the adoption of a token or protocol that allows for liquidity in a crisis moment. And they'll have to pour liquidity into that ecosystem in order to drive a price to a level that allows for them to transact and save the system. I don't want to say, again, that that's orchestrated, but I feel like we're on the precipice of that. With the reverse carry trade in Japan unwinding, and then the knock-on effects of that with U.S. Treasuries, Tether, Bitcoin, global stock markets, especially now that there's spot ETFs that hold Bitcoin in particular. If there's unrealized losses, they've got a call from other positions, which causes a further downturn there. They have, they're settled T+1, so now they've got these losses. If they could settle real time, they could unwind that very quickly. So what would they do? Maybe BlackRock launches an XRP ETF, since they already have the infrastructure for that. That lawsuit's over. They file the S1 with the SEC, pops on immediately. They're able to dump liquidity in there and drive the price up. Just my speculation. I think, it definitely could happen, quote unquote, overnight, especially with Japan. And that would be like here in the US. Japan has a crisis with the reverse carry trade unwinding because they raise interest rates because oil has a problem and is going up very quickly. All speculation, right? And if it moves in that way, you can see on the XRP chart, it never went back down into that area. We didn't ever get back down to half a penny. Okay, we went to $3.84 and we came back down to like 18 cents. Okay, which was still, what is that? Half a penny to 18 cents. The 36x was the floor. Well, I guess it got down to like 13, so 26x was the floor. It never got back down to the other deal, right? So could we see a drawback after price appreciation? Potentially. I don't think that that's going to be the case. I think that once we start seeing it used at scale for and institutions adopt it for payments, Swift in particular, they have more than 5 trillion a day that they settle through that system. You've got the back end of the stock market that I think the DTCC might use, and Project Ion to settle those trades, which is like 6.5 trillion a day. The FX market's even greater than that. SBI manages 10% of that market. So I think as these systems move on to the network and potentially already running in tandem, just waiting for enough liquidity on the mainnet to be able to settle those, I think it'll hold price at higher levels over time. And we won't have the volatility or the drawdown that we've had in the past for XRP in particular. The rest of the market, I don't know. And again, that's why I don't own anything else. It's the only thing that I can't say absolutely certain on, but very confident in. So hopefully that gives you, again, this is just my opinion. You make your own choices. You never go broke taking profits. I will say that. You do owe taxes taking profits, so just be mindful of that. But if you're doing it responsibly and you're appropriating that income correctly, you can mitigate those tax implications and set yourself up for a lot of success. So hopefully that was helpful, David. Thank you for the super chat, brother. Much appreciated, and great question. Rocky Mountain Jack, thank you for the super chat. He did not ask a question, but he did throw a little money in the pot. So I just want to say thank you, and appreciate you being on here. Echo, who else, says, if I already have an LLC, do I add it or start a separate LLC dealing with digital assets? That depends. Like a lawyer would answer. If the LLC that you currently operate has the possibility or likelihood of being sued for its current business operations in some capacity because you're dealing with other parties, I would segregate that risk by opening up a separate LLC. If that LLC is not filed in Wyoming, you could be subject to whatever the laws of that state are around digital assets. You probably don't have the anonymity that you would get unless you're in Delaware, Nevada, or South Dakota. You can set up an LLC in a separate state. All you need is a registered agent. They allowed you to use their address to set that up. It's like $150 a year is the cost for a registered agent in a different state. You will have to pay the state fees, right? So Wyoming, $60 a year, which is a lot cheaper than basically any other state. Also, they don't have state taxes in Wyoming. So as long as you keep the money in the LLC and you're not passing out a bunch to yourself in your personal bank account, like the other gentleman mentioned, then you're not going to be subject to state taxes for some of your income. You're still going to have to pay yourself W-2, and anyway, there's some stuff there, but you're going to get the benefits of that jurisdiction with the digital assets also. So if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you're a consultant, if you're a lawn care man, if you're a plumber, if you're doing anything where you're dealing with other people and providing a service, I would segregate the risk. If it is a trading LLC and that's how you make your money, again, you're going to be stuck to the NAICS code and the tax terms of that. So everything that you recognize is going to be income. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad. If you do a lot of trading, if you're doing swapping in between currencies and you don't want to have to count for every single trade and how you did it, and you just want to look at the profit or loss at the end of the year, that's the way you would set that up. So it really just depends on what you're doing with your current LLC, where it's filed, what your long-term plans are, and if you feel that it's appropriate to segregate that risk or not, or silo that risk to another LLC. In most circumstances, if you have a business that you are operating in some jurisdiction, providing a product or service, we would recommend, or operating real estate for sure, if you're operating real estate, setting up a separate LLC for your digital assets. If you have a consulting or investment or a management company, depending on what you're doing, it may or may not make sense to set up another LLC. But again, I would probably say like 95% of the time, it's probably a best practice to set up a separate LLC to manage your digital assets. Scrolling on down here. Really good questions. Again, hopefully this has been valuable for you guys. I really enjoy doing these on Monday and Wednesday nights. It's a way that I can kind of get back. And like I said, I've done this for a long time, like 2.5 years. I get on here, did it on X for a long time. We're still doing it on X, but it's different format than it used to be. I used to have a whole bunch of people up and we would talk about different topics and stuff. And we do that in the mastermind. We had 3 or 4 people up there talking today on digital asset discussion that are experts in certain areas. And we kind of go back and forth and will ask questions between one another depending on their expertise. So that I like that format. Again, you just kind of get, I only know so much. I don't know what I don't know, just like I told you guys earlier. And so it's nice to have other people around me that I feel are competent and capable. And, we bring them up. So, let's see here. This is a good one. Shuri says, I hear XDC has great potential. My question is if it's better to hold onto it long term or if it'll go up and then go back down again during the bull run. How high do you think it'll go? I'm hopeful for some type of institutional adoption for XDC. I think trade finance, like they got that on lock. I think that there will definitely be use case, there for XDC. Settlement for payments, potentially, if there's enough liquidity in it. If it got adopted for trade finance at scale, I think you could see somewhere between $1 and $5 on XDC. I think that's completely reasonable. I could be cutting it short and it could go higher than that. You're not going to be able to earn a yield on XDC unless we don't have these live yet, so I'll talk about it here. We have an opportunity to get your XDC into masternodes to be able to earn a yield on your XDC. That is coming in the near future to participants of the Mastermind. So if that's something you're interested in, there are minimums and other stuff that we discuss around that deal in the Mastermind group. Once that deal goes live, it's not anything that I can talk about here publicly. So we're working on solutions for that to be able to earn yield on your XDC is, I guess, what I'll say. And so that's, if you're going to hold it long term and have it work for you, I think that that's a great option. If you do want to sell some, also, again, never wrong to take profits. I don't know what the price action on any of these other assets aside from XRP is going to look like. And I don't have a crystal ball on XRP. I just have my speculation based on conversations I've had and what I think will happen during institutional adoption. So take it with a grain of salt. I think it is potentially a really great investment. It's definitely something I'll be looking at on the other side of XRP's appreciation. Get down to the bottom here and appreciate you for the super chat here, Vincent. I don't know if that was for the question I answered earlier, but it's appreciated either way. And then we got one here from Roger. I knew we had one more down here. So he says, Jake, wondering about the Mastermind. It seems like it might be a little beyond my knowledge level. Thoughts? Thank you for all you do. So we have all different levels of the Mastermind, and the idea of the Mastermind is to help people at whatever level they're at. I have personally really benefited from working in groups of people where people are like 1 to 5 steps ahead of me. And we have a lot of people in there that would qualify in that category across the board, right? So we have people that have already completely set up their estates, that have their assets in institutional custody, that work with us at DWP, that are, a year further ahead than some people in their journey and have done a lot of proactive work. And then we have other people that are just beginning, that are just looking to learn about things and make sure that they're structuring things specifically for them and maybe set up an LLC, maybe figure out what to do for different types of investment. So we've curated this where we want to be on the journey with you, right? So wherever you're starting, everybody has a different starting point. And so we try to make it applicable to anyone. And we have different levels of the Mastermind that kind of best fit those individuals. So if you're just starting out, if you're not sure if it's the right fit for you, we have a social membership. It's $25. Give it a go. I think. Well, I've never said this on here, but you guys are watching tonight, so I'll give it to you. If you want to try it out for free, you get on there. There's a coupon code. If you put in all caps, Beyond Broke, 1 MO, it'll give you a free month, and you can try it out. I think you can do that for the social and for the Carbon One. So get in there. Make sure you connect to the Discord, because we've had a lot of people here recently like pay and they never come into the community, and they're like, well, I'm not getting any value, so they cancel, which I hate. We need to do a better job of explaining that. So it is on Discord. Discord's not the easiest thing to deal with. I will say that. It was a learning curve for me personally when we started doing that. I'm not a gamer, but I've gotten used to it. And I really do like the way it works, because there's different channels. and when you get in there, it's going to kind of be a little bit overwhelming. Like it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose. There's a lot of different channels with a lot of different information. I will say most people probably use 3 or 4 channels in there. They come in for the town halls. They get the information, the updates, the stuff we're talking about on a regular basis in there. If you want to participate in the private investments and get those opportunities, it does require you to be in Carbon 1, but because we provide other resources that you have access to on the website that we feel, allow people to become sophisticated investors. The social membership is a great opportunity for people to just try it out and see if it's something that fits for them. But again, like I said, I'm pretty confident that if you just want to try it out for 1 month for free, and if you don't like it, cancel, then it is all caps, the whole thing, Beyond Broke 1, the number 1 MO. You can use that at checkout, and you get 1 free month to trial it. So let's see here. DFIN. Erie does live there in Japan. I will say that. She does talk to some of the regulators. She's a super big fan of XDC. She also doesn't know what she's talking about. Just to say it bluntly. I think that she does a lot of good research. I don't think that she has the right conversations with people. She has a lot of conversations with people that are building on the XRP ledger. She was at the conference there in a lot of the developer community and her get along, which is great. I think that people should use the public mainnet to build things, but a lot of the institutions, again, are going to build private permission networks that interact with the XRP to settle. And I think that's where we're going to originally see the adoption. And then once there's liquidity there, we might see other things like the back end of the stock market, the FX market, and then potentially derivatives. I think that's Ripple's real objective with Codius in the background. It's not something they talk about. But anyway, I'm going to say that Yoshitaka Kitao definitely knows what he's talking about, and he wouldn't have said, Japan would be using XRP by 2025 5 years ago if he didn't know that to be the case. So I'm going to listen to somebody that used to be the advisor to the prime minister in Japan before he was killed, and also the chairman of one of the largest banks on the planet over crypto area. Again, just my personal bias, but no, like I said, she lives there. Maybe she talks to people that I don't. Maybe she knows something I don't. But from the conversations I had, I would say she doesn't know what she's talking about. Let's see here. George has asked, you've mentioned that a new financial system will require digital identity. Yes. I think digital identity is around the corner because Social Security number breach. I think you might be right, George. Today I received medical record breach. Yeah. I will say problem, reaction, solution is something that happens quite frequently to bring about adoption of new technologies and solutions that might be ready to go. And what you've presented here provides a really good reason for digital identity to be rolled out on distributed ledger technology, and potentially for medical records, Hashgraph, and secure networks, so that these things cannot be hacked and information secure. So I would agree with you. Appreciate you bringing that up and pointing it out for people. I'm going to wrap it up here after just 2 more questions. So Create 2116 says, how can you mitigate taxes if you don't have a large amount of XRP? I remember you said you need 100K to open an LLC. No, you don't. You don't need 100K, 100,000 XRP to open an LLC. You can open an LLC for 1 XRP if you want to. I don't think it's worth the cost of benefit there. I would rather spend the money on more XRP personally if I just had a smaller amount. What I've said before is, and you did say here 100. I normally say like 50K invested in digital assets for an individual is where I would start looking at an LLC. But if you plan to take profits and you think those profits are going to be meaningful, and you plan to purchase things to offset your income with them, so a vehicle or real estate or insurance policies or anything that cash flows or that's going to depreciate, or other things like that, then it definitely makes sense to have it in an LLC. If you're just going to cash out and pay your house off, which is what some people want to do, I don't understand that. That's not something that I'm going to do. If you got a 2.5% or 3% interest rate on your home for 30 years and you lock that in, you got free money. For some people, the burden of debt causes stress in their life, and it reduces their quality of life. And in those circumstances, pay it off. I completely agree with you. Pay it off. If you can deal with that and you're a logical person and you don't operate on emotion and you don't have to, I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. It's my personal bias. Okay. So you do you, pay off whatever debts and what you want to pay off. If it gives you better quality of life and easier to sleep at night, do it. I think you could do that in a more methodical way that's probably better for cash flow and makes sense to offset taxes. And you could just purchase a real estate, piece of real estate that you can use cost seg on and pull depreciation forward on and offset the taxable income with, and then also get the cash flows off that property that now make the payment on your house plus some every single month. I think it's much, just my opinion. But yeah, you definitely don't need at least 100,000 XRP to set up an LLC. That's just my break-even point for cost to benefit. So up to you. And the reason for the LLC in the short term, aside from you can move your assets into an LLC after appreciation. So that's the other thing. If you don't have, more than $10 million worth, it's really for people that have more, or they're going to take larger profit when things pop off. You can still set all this up afterward if you're not going to have more than the gift tax threshold when things appreciate. So just for context. Jason Grove says his second holding would be HBAR and then XLM. Yeah, people have asked me that before, and those are the next 2 assets that I think have a lot of utility and potential price appreciation on the other side of adoption. Definitely something I'm going to be looking at post price appreciation for XRP. Here's last one I'm going to run down. Jeffrey says, any chance of a mastermind group for Canadians? Wealth management options are seemingly limited. They definitely are up there, and we definitely have a lot of Canadians in the mastermind, brother. Probably, I'd say about 20, 25 Canadians are in the mastermind, and they can help you. We can get you in touch with Aaron Grenhoss. He's our estate planner up there in Canada. He lives in Toronto. I met him when I was up there for Collision just a few months ago. And super good guy. He's fantastic with taxes. That's his wheelhouse. So if you're looking to not pay taxes there in Canada, he will help you set that up. He can set stuff up down in the Virgin Islands or in Caymans for your trust to get things offshore to mitigate taxes. He can help you set up entities there in Canada if that's something you're interested in. And he does work with us on the wealth management for those assets and his clients. So happy to make an introduction there. And like I said, we do have 20, 25 Canadians. We have an actual channel in the Discord specific for Australia, for Canada, and for the UK. So, or maybe it's the broader EU. I don't remember I think it's just the UK, because the UK is under the Commonwealth and it's pretty rough there for taxes. So like I said, we have a specific channel in the Discord where you can go find all the other people that reside up there in Canada and create connections with them. And get all the benefit that we provide there as well. So we'd love to have you in there if that's something you're interested in. and I guess that's a misconception. I probably don't say it enough on here. We're agnostic to where you live. We just want really good people that have aligned interest, that are going to support other people in the community, that are looking for a place to find companionship and want a safe place post appreciation to be able to interact with other people that experience the same thing as them. Because you're going to be limited on that on the other side of this deal, which is unfortunate. And we don't want people to end up like lottery winners that make a bunch of money, sell it, have tax implications, move it into a trust, have more tax implications, burn through the capital because they don't know how to appropriate it or borrow against it. And like, most people just don't have a financial education to understand. You don't know what you don't know. Like I said before, I didn't know all this stuff. I've learned it all over the last 5 years. And I went to school for finance. So anyway, appreciate you on the membership there, Dallin. And again, we'd love to have anybody that wants to be in the Mastermind group, a part of it. Just mastermind.beyondbroke.com, and I gave you guys like a free month code, which I've never done before here on a live stream. So would love to have you guys in there, check it out, see if it's something that you're interested in. And I think pretty close to and I will say this, we will lock the Discord down and the Mastermind down post price appreciation. The vetting process will become much more stringent, and we will raise prices on everything there post price appreciation. So if it's something you think you might be interested in post price appreciation and you want to try it for a free month and you think assets are going to go up in the next 30 days, it's a really good way to like lock that in. I'm trying to make it as easy and as good as I can for people. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it tonight. Appreciate you guys hopping on here and listening. All the great questions that everybody asks. We'll continue to do these. I'll be back on a Wednesday night if that's something you guys are interested in running down with me again. Shameless plug. If you like this and you'd like to work with our team, you can go to digitalfamilyoffice.io or digitalwealthpartners.net. And again, the mastermind is mastermind.beyondbroke.com. So with that, I hope you have a wonderful night, a wonderful week, and we'll see you guys on the next one.